and welcome to the virtual nature school. I'm Claire Warden, and we are enjoying an inquiry all around circles, spirals and spheres. Now, those three elements have really come together to be a very interesting conversation. We've looked at the fact that a circle is a complete element. We've looked at the idea that a spiral can keep on going into infinity. So we've been using some really complicated language to understand some of this materials that we're using, but also the concepts that are underneath it. Now today, we're going to take the idea of twisting, wrapping, spirality, and look at how we can use that to extend it into a bit of an art form. Let's have a look at this film and see how it inspires us.
Welcome to our film. It's the final inquiry around circles, spirals and spheres. We've been doing so many amazing things. There are too many for me to put into this little film, but well done to everybody who's been folding paper, exploring grass, going outside and having a look at the natural world. Some of us have been doing lots of cooking, so we've been moulding, we've been rolling dough and cooking it into different shapes. We've been melting chocolate and making both spirals and bowls to put our ice cream in. Some people have really persevered with the idea of shaping. So they've gone down the idea of making that sphere, making the ball. And so they've been working quite hard to shape and to tie and to wind different natural fibres, whether it's come from a palm tree or a piece of grass. Really good. We've been excited by making something. And so you can see here, people have enjoyed making bows and arrows and a quiver. The important bit is that we've been learning lots of skills like pulling and attaching, tying, bending, twisting, plaiting. These are all of those different things that we've learnt to do. We've had safety officers who've gone out and created for us safe zones to be able to use as our archery space, so that when we want to use our bows and arrows or throw our long sticks, we can do it and keeping ourselves and our friends nice and safe. So in our talking tub, we're now going to look at the idea of figures, of characters, of something you could make just using grass and straw and leaves, bits of stuff that you might have around or you might find on a walk through a park. When I was a little girl, my mum taught me how to make a little doll using the leaves from a sweet corn cob. Now, interestingly, when you buy these things, often people see them without the cover. In other countries, like America, they're always sold with those leaves around them, so we can use those in our crafts. You might find cattle corn growing in the fields in the south, but if you find those, you can always take off a couple of little leaves from the ground and use those to make your dolly if you're nearby. Because what you want is this bit, and it's really good for making dolls and figures because it's quite strong. You can use it fresh or you can use it if you dry it out and keep it in a box. When you make your little figure, there are ways and traditions of making dolls about how you make the head, but we can also be very creative and design our own interpretation of what a doll would look like if we made it from corn husk. Some people have traditionally made dolls using bits of grass and hay. And so here's one that's been made from a long length of grass that they then folded over and tied it with things like bits of thread and beads. When you get your straw, when you get your long bits of grass, you fold it over to make the head, and then it's about finding your string to tie around those things to make the neck, to make the tummy, to make the legs, and to make the arms. Here's one that's a very simple model, and you can see here that they've tied it for the head, and they've tied it for the tummy, and they've tied it for the legs, and then they've got another piece and made it into the arms and just slotted that through the middle. If you find using thread quite tricky, you could always make these with wire. When you learn about wrapping, about the spiral that we've been looking at this week, You can think to yourself, well, that's really exciting. I can now do common whipping. I can have a go at bending things round. And when you get really into it, you can make sculptures. And a sculpture is something like this. It's like an art piece. And so this stylized horse has been made just using straw and grasses that have been plaited, and they've been wound around with bits of wire and thread. So it's amazing what you can do when you really start to think about the amazing things you've got around you. Here's another one. This is a dragon, and you can see that he's got extra bits. He's got a big dragon mouth, and in there he's got a giant golf ball because it was a sculpture in a park that had a golf course in it. But when you look at how they've done it, they've just used straw. They have used wire to help them make a frame, and then they've wrapped the straw and the grass around it. So the possibilities are endless. You could make the giant dragon that you can see here and then paint him to give him some colour, or you might decide to do something small like the little mouse that's sitting on his back. Whatever it is that you decide to do, the important thing is to remember it's all about spiralling around your piece of string. So things that you might find useful to make figures. Well, you're going to need some grass or some straw or some hay, something like that. You might be able to find some sticks when you're on your walk that already look a bit like Stickman. There's a lovely book by Julia Donaldson that you might have read at school. And one of the things about looking really hard is that you can find sticks that often have a split in them that look like legs. And you can look very carefully and find little ones for the arms. And once you have your shape, you can decorate it up with clothing that's made of leaves and flowers. You're going to need that string to help you attach everything. And if you want to make a larger sculpture, you might want to use a little bit of wire just to help keep the shape. It's always handy if you've got little paper clips in your house to use those, because again, they can help you shape things and give it a little bit of structure. I look forward to seeing you in the virtual classroom and hearing about all of the ideas you've got, whether you're going to make a figure out of grass or sticks, when we're going to be able to use all the skills that we've learnt and make something quite unique. I look forward to seeing you then.
What an interesting week we've had. We've started off thinking about the simplicity of a hole in a leaf. We've been looking at circles and how we can bend bits of grass and sticks to make circles. We've thought about how we can interlock those circles to make new shapes, whether it's a chain, whether it's the idea of a sphere. We've looked at the concepts of spirality and understood the difference between a circle as being a finite shape to a spiral which is continuous that can go on into infinity. We've used spirality and circles in our craft, in our making processes. So we've been thinking a lot about how we can wrap wool around sticks to make games, to make pieces of art. And today we've really pushed ourselves to look at how we can follow First Nation thinking in using straw, using grass and the skill of wrapping to make toys, to make sculptures, all made from the natural world. It's been a phenomenal week, and thank you for joining us in the virtual nature school.